Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Tuesday, May 20th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 543 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we've got some more New York Jets news to discuss. In a recent ESPN article, the New York Jets were listed as the best team fit for Amari Cooper. So wanted to break that down today on the podcast. And tomorrow's OTA practice will be open to the media. Aaron Glenn will also speak to the media tomorrow afternoon as OTAs begin this week. Obviously, have some practices as well next week, and then you'll get some mandatory minicamp, of course, in June. So things ramping up here. Wanted to break down my OTAs preview, give you some things to look for as practices begin this week. We'll, of course, have you covered throughout the rest of this week on all of the OTAs. As always, though, before we begin, we got to tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS, America's favorite online sportsbook. If you want to get in on any of the sports betting action, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you want the hottest tickets in sports or entertainment, check out SeatGeek and use my code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase and get yourself out to some awesome events. And, of course, our friends over at Huga House. If you want any of their awesome selection of hats and sweatshirts, check them out and use code BUBS at checkout for 15% off any purchase and get yourself some awesome Huga House swag. So here we go, episode 543. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Wanted to, of course, get into a couple different things today on the podcast. We'll get to the OTA stuff a little bit later on, but wanted to start today's program by discussing a latest ESPN article that was released listing the best team fits for available free agents that are still out there. And the New York Jets were listed as a best team fit for wide receiver Amari Cooper. Here is what ESPN had to say. Quote, "There's a need for competition in the Jets' wide receiver room opposite of number one option Garrett Wilson. With Allen Lazard and Josh Reynolds next on the depth chart, Cooper could come in and fight for work. Yes, the 30-year-old is showing signs of decline on tape, but he is still a detailed route runner who can uncover. He could still be a solid target for quarterback Justin Fields on play action concepts, getting open on deep in-breakers. In 14 games with the Browns and Bills last season, Cooper caught 44 passes for 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. In 9 full seasons, he has topped the 1,000-yard receiving mark 7 times and has caught 64 career touchdown passes. Cooper remains available, 31 years old. He's entering his 12th season in the NFL. He'll be 31 in June, so 30 right now. He'll be 31 in June. Played 14 games, of course, last year, as that article mentioned, entering, the 12th season. Dealt with a little bit of a wrist injury last year, actually. Look, I view the Jets receiving core similar to many others, right? You look at this Jets receiving room right now, there definitely needs to be some help. I just don't see, and there's a lot of question marks. I personally just don't see, flat out, before I kind of give my thoughts on actually this move, if this would happen, I just don't see this being a move the New York Jets make. And I understand they went out and signed Josh Reynolds, who is 30 years old. and he is a veteran getting up there a little bit in age. But the New York Jets this entire offseason, especially what we saw them do this last week, which get rid of two guys well over 30 years old. And it's not like Amari Cooper's 36, 37, but he is north of 30. He is clearly slowing down. This just doesn't feel like a move that the New York Jets would make. And in my opinion, if the New York Jets would have made this move or would have really been interested in Amari Cooper, it probably would have been a move that they would have already made. Now, there could be the aspect of they're waiting until training camp, seeing what this group looks like that they have on paper, even OTAs as well, seeing what these guys look like with Justin Fields, and then potentially, if things are not going well in training camp or they view this room a little bit differently in terms of maybe they feel like there is a need for more help at wide receiver, because I do think the New York Jets right now, and I think this is pretty obvious, they have a lot more confidence in this wide receiver room. They believe a lot more in getting more out of the guys that are on this roster right now than us Jet fans do. And we'll see if that comes true, right? You're putting a lot of pressure on this coaching staff to get more out of these guys. But I think if anything, this would be something where if camp or even OTAs, mandatory minicamp, that 40-day period between the offseason stuff and training camp, if the Jets then start to feel like, okay, we do really need help, and maybe their original thoughts on the guys behind Garrett Wilson start to drop off a little bit, let's say Lazard gets dealt to Pittsburgh, whatever, then you could maybe open the door for Amari Cooper. But they're just getting younger, and I just don't think this is a move that the New York Jets will make. Now, should they make it? I wouldn't be against it. I'm in the boat of I would personally rather, if you're going to go out and get a guy for cheap, I would rather go out and trade a day 3 draft pick for Romeo Doubs, who is a younger option that could potentially come in, not only provide insurance right now, but potentially be a long-term fit for this New York Jets team alongside Garrett Wilson in this wide receiver room. Cooper is a 1-year thing as opposed to Doubs, just throwing a name out there, a little bit more of a future option who is kind of just getting forced out in Green Bay with all the other young options that they have over there. You look at Cooper's numbers last year, right? He struggled. And the article mentioned that 14 games played, 44 receptions, 547 yards, 12.4 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns. It was definitely a down year. No doubt about it. Was pretty much a non-factor towards the end of the season in Buffalo's offense. Even in some of those playoff games, did really nothing. I know he did have 4 catches in the title game, but in the divisional round, did nothing. Didn't have a single catch, only had 2 catches against Denver for 8 yards. So really was much of a non-factor towards the end there. But he is only a year removed. The aspect of looking at Cooper and saying he's still got some more left in the tank is this was a guy who in 2023 had 1,250 yards, which was 10th in the NFL in 15 games played, 72 receptions, 5 touchdowns. And you could muster last season, chalk up last season to saying, oh, traded mid-year, couldn't get on the same page with Josh Allen in that offense. If he would to come in now with the Jets, you get the opportunity for the rest of, the offseason workouts. You get training camp to build and mesh with Justin Fields and all that stuff. That's certainly possible. Last year was ugly. And if you want to be on the boat of signing Cooper, you look back at 2023 and say, right, he was only a year removed from the 1,000-yard season. It's not like the last time this guy was a productive receiver was 2018, 2019. No, 2023 had a very good year with a revolving door quarterback where, towards the end there, you had Joe Flacco. And even prior to last year, 4 of the 5 seasons since 2019, he had over 1,000 yards in each of those seasons. And as a matter of fact, 2023 was a career high. So again, I am in the boat of if they sign Cooper, I'm totally okay with it. It would be cheap. They've got $25 million right now in cap. They can get it done. It would provide insurance, no doubt. He's just, in my opinion, not my first option. If the Jets are legitimately thinking or get to a point where they really do want to sign another receiver, which right now it doesn't seem like that's the case. Right now, I think this coaching staff believes in what they have. They believe in Josh Reynolds taking over that consistent veteran role. They believe, I think, in tapping into potential of Tyler Johnson, who's young but hasn't really done much. I do think they believe in Arian Smith. Malachi Corral is a complete unknown. Who even knows if he's even on the roster? But do the Jets still see something in him? right? Who knows? But the point is, if they do get to that point, my preference would be, hey, trade a day 3 pick for Romeo Dobbs. I don't see Olave happening. I think Dobbs is a little bit more realistic, right? As opposed to going out and getting an older Cooper. But could totally understand the Cooper move. And the Jets need wide receiver help. They do. They do. You're one Garrett Wilson injury away from being really, really thin. Because it's Garrett Wilson and a bunch of question marks. We don't even know if Allen Lazard's going to be on this roster week 1. I still don't think he is. I think in the end of this all, he'll either be cut or traded to Pittsburgh. Probably traded to Pittsburgh the minute that Rodgers gets officially signed there. Outside of that, okay, Reynolds is a veteran. But outside of that, Malachi Corley, who even knows if he's out on the roster? Arian Smith got a long way to go in terms of developing into a legitimate NFL wide receiver. Tyler Johnson's done nothing in this league. Xavier Gipson regressed hugely last year. You can't rely on Xavier Gipson as a key cog. So Cooper would certainly provide a safety blanket. So would Dobbs or anybody else they bring in. A Keenan Allen, you want to throw his name out there. A safety blanket, a veteran presence with a proven track record. And you have Garrett, Cooper, Dobbs, whatever, plus Mason Taylor, plus Breece Hall getting a larger role in this offense. Then you could start to understand, okay, things look a lot better than what it looks like right now. So that's the Amari Cooper stuff, as the Jets were urged to sign him, according to ESPN. And by the way, just to throw this out there, right, the Jets only have 3 players currently on this roster over 30 years old. Tyrod, Thomas Hennessy, and Josh Reynolds. So we'll see. They just cut 2, kicker and punter, right? Morstead and Zerline. They just cut 2 guys well over 30. Are they going to sign somebody over 30 now? And Amari Cooper coming off of one of his worst seasons, really his worst season in his career? I doubt it. But we'll see. So that's the Amari Cooper stuff. Of course, with OTA starting up this week as well, I wanted to get into just some OTA notes, OTAs, preview, all that stuff here. I'll give you the schedule here. I want to put this up here first. The New York Jets will start up OTAs today. Tomorrow, actually, the media will be there, so we'll get some content. And then they'll also have practice on Thursday. Then May 28th through the 30th, they'll have practice. And then June 2nd through the 5th, they'll have some practices as well. So that's your OTA offseason workout schedule. So over the next 3 weeks, you'll have practices spread across all 3 of those weeks. And a mandatory minicamp for the Jets will be June 10th through the 12th. So really looking forward to OTAs, really looking forward to mandatory minicamp. Always enjoy covering that. Always enjoy, breaking that down, recapping all the practices, all that stuff. So we'll have content here, of course, tons of it on the program. But just some OTAs preview, some notes, some headlines, some things to look for that I wanted to get into today as we enter into OTAs starting up this week. I think one of the first things you look for, right, Justin Fields with this offense. Again, OTAs is practices in May. So you can't take too much stock into anything in these practices, good or bad. If Fields goes out there and throws 5 touchdowns, that doesn't mean he's winning MVP. If he goes out there and throws 5 interceptions, that doesn't mean he's going to stink this year and get benched. No, it's practices in May. They're just installing the offense. There is a lot of things that they're working on. This is nothing near real game action, but it is still something that progressing you towards training camp. So just seeing Fields out there with all these receivers, we talk about the wide receiver room. It's going to be an opportunity. I kind of tie in the wide receiver room as a whole here as well. Like we just got done talking about the wide receivers, but there's so many questions. Can a guy kind of step up during OTAs and, have a productive OTAs, have a productive mandatory minicamp where he's making some plays, showing off some speed? Like, can Arian Smith, is he a guy where he has a couple plays where his speed just is off the charts and, he doesn't have many drops. His route running's like, okay, like, can Arian Smith do that? Can you see something out of Malachi Corley, over the next couple of weeks? Tyler Johnson, all those guys, as I mentioned, all of those guys being complete unknowns. Are they able to go out there? Can you see some good connections between them and Fields? we'll see. Certainly that's something to look for. And Fields just as a whole in the offense, right? Operating the offense, running the offense, even his connection with Mason Taylor, which I was going to throw into next here. The rookies as a whole, I think you look for as a group of players that you want to have your eye on. All the rookies, all of the, even some of these UDFAs as well. If there was a time for these undrafted free agents to start to make a name for themselves, it's now. You have some of these UDFA wide receivers. The door is kind of open for them to make a name for themselves going into training camp. It is because this wide receiver room for the 5th, 6th time today, it's wide open. We don't know. There's so many questions. So some of those UDFA wide receivers throw in there. Of course, all the rookies actually drafted: Membu, Taylor, Azarie Thomas, mentioned Arian Smith already, Malachi Moore, Francisco Malinoa, Kiko Malinoa, and Tyler Barron, all those guys. I actually thought Taylor had a pretty good rookie minicamp. Membu, you saw some of the athletic traits and some of the quickness during rookie minicamp, just the little things. So continuing to see him, seeing these guys finish out the offseason strong and then go into that 40-day period after mandatory minicamp, really, feeling good about going into training camp. So all these rookies, OTAs are always important for these guys. Every step in the offseason and their development is crucial because they have so much to learn and so much that they have to develop. Just some other things. Like, I think the interior defensive line, and this is even just training camp as well, but I think that battle next to Quinnen Williams is going to be interesting. You brought in Derek Nottie, you brought in Byron Coart. You didn't draft anybody. You did bring in a UDFA in Fatorma Molba, who is a run-stuffing giant. What does he look like? It's kind of tough to gauge the offensive line and defensive line during OTAs because they don't have pads on, even the first couple practices of training camp. So you really start to see defense and offensive line progression in August once the pads really come on. But still, just in general, like a guy that I think could take a jump this year and potentially fill out a starting role next to Quinnen Williams is Leonard Taylor. So this will be an opportunity to him. And I think the Jets personally, with the way that they attack the interior defensive line in free agency and not selecting a single one in what was a very deep class, I think that shows their belief in Leonard Taylor personally. I think they've got some level of belief, a high level of belief in him, that he can take a year 2 jump and maybe be the guy next to Quinnen Williams. I think that's certainly a possibility. So Taylor's a guy to look for here as OTAs begin in terms of maybe trying to fight and fill out a starting role. And the interior defensive line as a whole next to Quinnen, still a question mark. Feels like it might be Derek Nottie, but does Fatorma Molba come up? What do you got, Byron Coart? A lot of questions. They didn't address that position very much this offseason. So you head into the training camp, head into OTAs here with certainly some competition that will be, happening. And then just some other things like the Donovan Edwards, I think, is a name to look for. I don't think he'll make the roster over Isaiah Davis, but if they do keep 4 running backs, is he in the mix? Donovan Edwards, I would throw his name out there just as somebody to look for. Had a pretty good rookie mini camp, broke out some nice runs, had a couple nice catches. Again, it's rookie mini camp, small sample size, take it with a grain of salt. But as a UDFA, who's an intriguing UDFA because of his history in college where he had a ton of success early on, or at least looked like he was on his way to a ton of success and then completely fell off, never hit that success. He's a name to look for. And of course, the good old quarterback 3 battle. Adrian Martinez, Brady Cook. This will be a fun one. All throughout camp, QB3 battle. Martinez, Cook, see what they do. OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and then, of course, training camp as well. So those are just some things to look for. Like I said, the in the trenches stuff, no pun intended on here on In the Trenches with Gang Green, but the trench stuff with the offense, defensive line is tough to really gauge and evaluate right now when they don't have pads on. But everything else, like the receivers, tight ends, pass catching, Fields, all those things, you can get some good evaluation and really, see what these guys look like as we sit right now in May. That's the key thing. It's May. Can't overreact. There always is overreactions, good or bad, It's May. There's a lot of time. Tomorrow will be the first real OTA practice we're covering, so we'll cover it. But as always, still OTAs at the end of the day. This is not anywhere near real game action. And I'll throw this out there as well. Just the offseason as a whole, this isn't really something to look for in OTAs, but I have really liked the way that the Jets and Aaron Glenn, and I might want to get into this in another episode, but I've really liked the way that the Jets and Aaron Glenn have approached this offseason and really have just approached, like, they have done the little things. Like, they are going about their business normally. They went to the combine. They actually ran practice at rookie minicamp, right? For a while, these last couple years under Saleh and Douglas, there were so many things that they did strange. Like, even 2 years ago, and I understand it was because of the Hall of Fame game, but even that year, they canceled mandatory minicamp. And I understand it's because they had to report early, but it was just strange. Like, there was so many things that the Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas regime did. Like Saleh not going to the combine, not practicing last year at all during rookie minicamp. Like, this year, the Jets are going about their business, and I'm not saying that Aaron Glenn's going to be a great coach for this. But early signs, they've gone about their business like adults. They're doing things normally. They're practicing at rookie minicamp. Now they're going into OTAs. They were both at training camp or at the combine. It's just the little things like that. For so long, especially under Saleh and Douglas, they did so many weird and strange things that just didn't make sense. And over time, just added up after a while. Early on here, the little things, the Jets are doing normal. And again, that's nice. They're out of the spotlight. There's no drama. They're going about their business like adults. They're going to have a normal OTAs practice, then mandatory mini camp. Like, everything's normal right now. And I think that's a good thing. So I figured I wanted to throw that out there as well as we get to the next phase of the offseason. So that'll do it. Stay tuned. We'll have a lot more content coming your way, of course, the rest of the week. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate your support. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Are you open to the New York Jets signing Amari Cooper? What are your thoughts on OTAs as well? Let me know, and we'll talk to you soon. Until next time, Jets, 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 Jets.